go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this webinar, Digital Marketing, Reporting and Analytics, presented by Tyler with C1 Partners. A couple housekeeping notes. We will be muting all the phones just to prevent any distractions or feedback. Feel free to use your chat feature that's going to be on the left-hand side of your screen, or raise your virtual hand. We'll also be sending out an evaluation after the webinar via email. We ask that you please let us know how we did, any improvements or suggestions or just comments. We'll also be recording this just to let you know. If you'd like a recording of the webinar, please email me and I will send that to you. Now I'd like to hand things over to Tyler, our presenter today. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you very much. Hey everyone, thanks for spending some time with me today as we go over reporting and analytics as it pertains to digital marketing and all things. So I'm trying to make this as interesting as possible because we're going to be talking about a couple of random little data points and things like this. So please, if you have any questions, there's only a few of us on here today. So I encourage you just to ask them as we go along, and I'm happy to stop and clarify points if you're looking for a little bit more clarification, or I will just keep going on. But we got about 40 to 45 minutes of material today, so we're going to go through that and leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. As I said, please feel free to chat away, and we'll get started. So a little bit about why we're talking about reporting and analytics today. Generally speaking, there's a lot of data out there that show that CEOs and higher-ups think that marketing can lack credibility because there's really no way to quantify the success of their campaigns. A lot of marketing discussions will focus on things like brand equity, branding awareness, impressions, kind of soft things that, quite frankly, advertisers have been using to justify really expensive decisions for a very long time. I'll tell you from personal experience, I moved into the digital marketing space after really being in TV and radio and print, more traditional forms of media, and knowing, really truthfully that we don't have an idea if it works. It's really hard to measure. We'd assume sales and interaction would go up, and really you'd be struggling to find what that correlation looks like. The advantage here to digital marketing is you can eliminate these concerns that you're looking at right here. You can track all these things, revenue, sales, or whatever your goals are. And as we really look at focusing this around, the nonprofit space, understand that just about any measurable action you can create as a goal for digital marketing. And you can use all the tools that we're going to go over today and all the methods that we're going to go over today to really prove the value of either what you're spending your money or your time on, and seeing how that's actually generating measurable, actionable goals. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. A little bit about me and about us. My name is Tyler Mandroian. I'm our Director of Operations. So my job is to essentially manage our teams in making good on the promises that we make to our clients, really reviewing things like this. So data and reporting are going to be pretty essential to what I do on a day in and day out basis. So we're going to keep moving along here. So the first thing that we're going to review is the digital dialogue. This is something that we go over in our presentation, so if you've seen our previous presentations, you'll probably be a little bit familiar with this. But essentially, we look at this as a four-step process. So driving traffic via search, bringing customers to you through blogging, social media, SEO, backlinking, pay-per-click, handing out business cards at a show, or just any kind of interaction. Basically, any way you're driving users to your page, which is really the headquarters of your entire kind of online marketing endeavor. So number two is capturing the customer. So really engaging your customer with dynamic interfaces, but also dynamic content, and making sure that when someone lands on your website, that they're actually seeing a message that really resonates with them. We talk about we talk about things, and I apologize if there's a little bit of a sound issue. We're trying to get that a little bit resolved here, but I'll try to speak up, so hopefully it's not too bad. Sorry about that, Addie. As we go through capturing the customer, ensuring that they're landing in the right place at the right time and seeing the right message. Step 3 is really publishing content, and so it's giving value to interact with your brand and interact with your, your messaging, what you want to be showing people, what you want to be telling people. This is really where you're pushing the story of what you're trying to achieve. And step 4 here is really what we're analyzing today, which is measuring and analyzing. So using the data from your efforts to continually refine what you're doing to increase your marketing ROI. And one of the things that I would encourage everyone to do, even if you're looking at things just like email interaction, perhaps filling out a form or something that isn't like a hard traditional sale that you would look at in most marketing endeavors, assign some kind of value to every activity. And these are things that, we'll go into Google Analytics a little bit today. And you can actually enter these in versus goals that you set into Google Analytics. But it's really going to help you quantify why and how things are working to you from a value standpoint. So anytime you're spending money on something, you want to know what your return is, right? And especially as you deal with smaller marketing budgets, as nonprofits tend to do, your time is really your marketing budget. And so you really want to make sure that you're spending your time doing things that are creating progress in your actionable goals. So the agenda that we're going to cover here today is why marketing analytics are important. We're going to cover some analytics and reporting tools, how to measure components of digital marketing. So we're going to go over a few different environments and some ways that we suggest on how to kind of track the activity. So we'll go over website and landing pages. We'll go over SEO and organic search, so Google searches essentially. We'll go over paid search, so that's commonly called PPC, or what you would run through Google AdWords, or if you're feeling crazy, through the Bing ad network. Social media, so we'll cover a couple of the bigger, more popular social media sites, and then email marketing. We're going to go over a little bit about tracking your competitors, and we're going to review a couple of case studies. So that's our agenda today. So really, why are marketing analytics important? This is a pretty simple view of why it's important. I mean, you really want to make sure you're identifying what's actually working and what's not working. And this is the main difference. This is the main advantage to digital marketing as a whole. We have, as advertisers, the first real opportunity to measure every step of the way, from the point where someone doesn't even interact with our site yet. They simply Google something, and we can see where we're coming up, all the way down to what we call the sales funnel, through landing on the website, interacting with the site, going from page to page. Maybe they're watching a video, maybe they're downloading a white paper, maybe they're filling out a form, and eventually getting to that endpoint of where our goal is. And through each step of this process, we can identify where people are leaving, how long they're spending in each particular step, and really we have just an unprecedented amount of data that we can actually go through, sort, and figure out what isn't working and how we can improve each step of the way. Online marketing is very segmented. And that segmentation is very advantageous to us as marketers, because we're able to identify each individual step of the way and figure out how to progress the entire sort of spectrum of what we're targeting from a digital marketing perspective, and every step of the way as it continues. And that's really how you're going to, help use analytics to determine your progress, determine if you're reaching your goals, invest more time, energy, and resources into what's working well. And this is why we go back to saying, assign every goal some kind of financial or some kind of cash value, so that you have some metrics to work with. This way you can really just identify, looking at your time as your greatest resource, what your ROI is on it. And then you can really get a good idea of what needs to be done, what you could be missing. And the deeper you dive into analytics, the more this will become apparent. So analytics and reporting tools. The two by far most powerful analytics and reporting tools are Google Analytics, for one, and Google Webmaster Tools, which is actually now just recently named Google Search Console. It's the exact same thing. Google just did a little bit of a rebranding. So we're actually going to cover that one first as it pertains to organic SEO and if you're with us in our previous presentation, blogging. So you're going to be really looking at what people are searching in Google, how often your website is going to come up in the SERP, S-E-R-P, search engine result pages is our little acronym, and digital marketing is full of them. So if I drop a few and you need some clarification, please let me know and I'll be happy to spell them out. You have the ability to actually look at the individual search terms that are bringing back your website, what page on your website it's actually bringing back, and then what position on average you're coming up in the results. So it'll record you at spot 1, 2, or 3. It'll record you at spot 50, spot 60. And even when people aren't really going down that far, you're still going to get an idea of how you're ranking. And Google Webmaster Tools / Search Console is going to be the most accurate data you'll be able to find for things that are happening off of your site. So there's a couple of screens that we'll go through here where you can find some really valuable information about errors on your website, HTML improvements, and basically the signals that Google are telling you, hey, you should fix this, we'll like you more. So generally speaking, in the world of online advertising, if Google tells you to do something, it's probably a pretty good idea that you do it. So you'll also get an idea of impressions, trends, click-through rates, and some of those hard metrics that can help you determine how good your organic or your blogging endeavors really are. Google Analytics is really about what's happening on your website. Where are visitors going? What pages are they seeing? How long are they spending time there? Some of the things that we have on here, bounce rate. So bounce rate is probably, and I'm going to stop on that metric for a second because you see it thrown around a lot in so many different online marketing newsletters, articles, whatever it is that you're reading. Bounce rates can be good, bounce rates can be bad, bounce rates can really tell you a lot or tell you not very much. Generally speaking, a high bounce rate is considered a bad thing. Bounce rate basically measures if someone is on a particular page, do they keep interacting with that site or do they leave immediately? However, if someone's landing onto a page where you've set it up in a way where they don't need to move to another page to accomplish the goal that you want them to accomplish, so if they're landing on a particular splash page and it has the form you want them to fill out and they're filling that form, they may fill out that form and take the action that you want, but still count as a bounce. So that's one of the ones with a lot of metrics that you want to take with a grain of salt. Page visits and unique visits are something that you can see in analytics. So, sorting unique versus repeat traffic can give you a better idea of how many people are actually interacting with your site. Conversions are going to be the most important thing that you'll ever want to track. This is where ROI comes from. Conversions, as we discussed earlier, can track anything. So purchases, form fill-outs, downloads, clicking a particular button on a website, watching a video. These are all things you can track for free in analytics that will give you probably the most powerful data you'll see from an online marketing perspective. Google Analytics will also break everything down by source. So whether it's coming from organic traffic, paid traffic, social media, an email campaign, if you're crafty, you can actually create your own sources. So let's say you wanted to track how a TV ad might run and you're displaying a particular URL that you have linked up to Google Analytics. So you can track even traditional media with the proper application of Google Analytics. So it's an extremely powerful tool and it's absolutely free. If you don't have it on your website right now, go do that. There are also some other ranking tools that we work with, on a third-party basis. Here at C1 Partners, we probably have a good 30 to 35 of them. Some of them are stronger than others in particular areas. These are some of the basic ones, though, that are either free or generally very low cost. They can help you gain some insights outside of Google Webmaster Tools and Google Analytics. Bright Local, we use that to track all of our clients' terms, how they're ranking, and to see what the actual position is and how it changes over time. Moz is going to be your SEO. Moz is going to be your SEO kind of headquarters. So this is going to tell you what's going on with your website, how things are ranking, and essentially how the overall organic performance is. SEO Book is a great source just to learn about SEO and how things can change depending on what you're doing from a blogging perspective and depending on what you're doing from a keyword-driven actual content campaign. HubSpot is a great resource for marketers. Everyone in our company gets HubSpot certified because they do a really good job of walking you through how you should treat your conversion funnels, how you should talk about content, and how you should position these things to put your website in the best possible space. So those are some really good resources right off the bat that I suggest you spend a little bit of time with as you go through digital marketing. Another piece, as we talk about conversions or leads, there are a lot of tools that can capture things that you might not think you could capture. One of our favorite ones is the combination of Mongoose Metrics or IfByPhone. We've actually moved past these guys recently, and we're using something called Call Tracking Metrics. Either way, the kind of program is the same. What these programs will do is they'll actually replace the phone number on your website with a tracking number that is dynamic. So it's going to change based on how someone visited your site. They're going to call that number and still get to your business line or whatever number you want them to reach. The only difference is that this software is now recording, hey, they called tracking number A, B, C, or D. That one is associated with organic traffic. That one is associated with paid traffic. This one is associated from Yahoo traffic. This is associated from Facebook. So you're actually going to be able to see using the software. It's pretty inexpensive. I mean, for a small website with just a few hundred visits a month, you're talking $10 to $20 usually to get really valuable data. And you're going to be able to assign an ROI based on actual interactions with your calls. Also looking again, at the source of the leads, this can all be done with form submissions as well. These calls and form submissions probably cover about 90% of what you want to track. But the more content you're creating and the more value you're driving, you're going to want to track those types of conversions as well. And if all this stuff is set up properly, which it usually comes out of the box pretty well tight, you're going to find yourself collecting really valuable data really easily and really quickly. Salesforce, we're not going to get into too much today, but has the ability to basically track people further down the conversion funnel. So when someone converts on your website, fills out a form, makes a phone call, this program and really any kind of integrated CRM, which you've probably heard of Salesforce, but you might not know what an integrated CRM is. It's really just about managing that customer throughout the entire sales cycle or managing that lead throughout the entire sales cycle. So whether you're trying to generate something like a donation or some kind of interaction, there's a number of programs that will help you integrate your marketing so that they're automatically populating these CRMs with things like names, phone numbers, email addresses, and some of them are expensive. Salesforce is probably on the higher end cost-wise. There's some free resources out there as well, so I just encourage you to search for one that best fits your needs if this is something you want to go down. So how to measure your website performance in SEO. there's a couple of factors that you're going to want to see and keep an eye on. Total links to your website and domain links to your website. These are things that are going to be important to know, but I would recommend against making too heavy-handed of a decision about these metrics unless you really have a good eye for SEO. Things that you can control, errors on your page and pages indexed, so how many errors are coming up. When Google crawls your site, is it seeing broken links? Is it seeing a bad navigation? Are users having a bad experience? That's what Google wants to tell you about so that you can improve your own marketing. Branded versus non-branded traffic. This is something that you'll look at in Google Webmaster Tools or Search Console. And by looking at your search terms, you'll have an idea whether people are just looking up your company name and finding you in Google, which isn't that. It's a good measure of, your sort of visceral physical impact on the world. But really what we're looking for from an SEO standpoint is that non-branded traffic. So driving specific keywords and increasing the amount of traffic that you're getting from those keywords. That's how we tell our clients to measure, our success as an SEO company or as an SEO provider. But that's something that you should always be looking at just to figure out how strong your online marketing is. That's going to go hand in hand with your keyword performance and rankings, as well as your traffic sources and where goals are coming from. So this example is from Webmaster Tools. Basically, SEO-related issues that this is going to cover. You can actually see, Google will tell you the actual links to your website. So regardless of where you're at, this is actually from a lawyer here in Denver. And you can see that, they had a page called Denver Dog Bite Lawyers that's been linked to by 9 different sources. So you can come here and see these examples, figure out who actually out in the world is linking back to your website. This is all really valuable data, and you can match this with what they call referral traffic in Google Analytics to see, hey, how many people are coming to my website from lawyers.com or justia.com or whatever that resource might be. Looking at errors, so one of the big things that Google really did to help out webmasters and to help out marketers is to make it very easy to see what quick improvements you can make. So HTML, if you're not familiar with it, hypertext markup language, that's how websites are built. Every website is built on some way, shape, or form a variation of HTML. And this will tell you some very quick wins you can make with your website just by basically looking at it. Seeing something like duplicate meta descriptions or short meta descriptions, these are things that are very easy to change, especially if you're using a website that's built on something like WordPress. You just kind of got to go in there and do it. A quick note on this, Google absolutely hates duplicate content. Google is Google today, and we use Google instead of using, Ask Jeeves or Lycos or whatever was around before it, because they return the best search results for users. They do that by not returning that same search result over and over and over again because they want to show differing opinions. They want to show a real tightly organized piece rather than what people can just kind of duplicate or spam. So anytime Google's telling you have something duplicate going on, it's something you'll really want to address. It's probably the biggest hurdle with most of our SEO clients. Pages indexed. This is Google telling you how many pages it thinks your website has. If these numbers seem high or seem low, you may have a technical issue. Generally speaking, these numbers can get high, especially with a blog. So one of the things you want to keep kind of control on is, how are my categories being displayed? Is my blog generating, hundreds of different pages because there's archives and things like that enabled? Google's indexing everything your site's doing, and it really wants to index and capture as much as possible. You want Google to only focus onto the pages that are most important to your digital marketing. So taking a hard look at this is something that you'll always want to keep kind of an eye on. this view is showing what the search queries look like inside of Google Webmaster Tools. So as you can see, the kind of query down here, these are the actual terms that are being typed into Google that are bringing back your ads. Impressions is the number of times that your page is coming back up in the search engine result page, and clicks is going to cover out of how many impressions, how many times are you actually clicked on, how many visitors actually went to your site. That's going to generate a CTR, or a click-through rate. This is probably the best online marketing barometer for how well your messaging and how well your page descriptions are matching up with search terms that the users are actually using to find your site. We use this metric pretty heavy-handedly to tell us how good we're doing from a messaging standpoint. And then your average position. So on all the pages, so for example, Burton Genesis 2015, out of the 6 searches we came up for, we were on average listed at the 7th position organically. So not great, but still on the first page. So we expect to see a pretty good return on that. Usually wouldn't see a 50% click-through rate showing up on that low of a listing, but we have some really tight messaging here in this example. So that's why our click-through rates were so high. Traffic sources in Google Analytics. So this is the view that you're going to see when you want to determine how many people are coming in from the various ways of getting to your website. So organic search is going to cover any of the search engines. 99% of your traffic will come from Google, Bing, or Yahoo. Really, you want to focus on Google. Generally speaking, Bing and Yahoo will kind of react to the way that Google likes your website. Direct traffic is people entering your actual URL, either from like a business card or a brochure or some kind of physical element, and just going straight to your website. An important caveat to this is that this is also Google's kind of catch-all. So if it sees traffic it doesn't know what to do with, a lot of times that can come from image ads or display ads that you might be purchasing that aren't quite configured properly. If Google doesn't have what they call referrer information, so basically what tells Google that, hey, this user came from page A over to your website, it doesn't know what to do with that traffic without that data. And sometimes this data gets lost for a variety of technical reasons that you wouldn't want me to get into today. But understand that traffic can also be just kind of lumped into direct traffic. So even in this example, 33% of people on this website generally are not actually typing in the exact URL. What's probably happening here is that there's advertising that isn't configured properly. Other will be kind of a catch-all as well, although if you click on other, it'll spell out the different channels that's covered. Paid search is going to come from something like Google AdWords or cost per click type traffic. Referral is going to be, as we spoke about earlier, if a website sends a user from their site to your site, that's going to count as a referral. So a link on a directory page, for example, someone clicks that, goes to your website, that's going to count as a referral. And you can expand that list and actually see what websites are responsible for driving traffic. Social is going to count any social media, so Facebook, Twitter, any of these that are actually pushing traffic into your website is going to be captured here. This is a bit more expanded view. So one of the things that are really important here is source and medium. You're going to see, this is actually from our website, you're going to see that Google, whether it's organic or CPC, which is cost per click, or Google AdWords, are going to represent different amounts of traffic on your website. The difference between sessions and new users, this is really what you're looking at for unique. So while it might look like there's 273 people on our website from Google Organic, in reality it's about 210. New users is really what you want to focus on here. So another piece, just to sort of underline the whole theme of today's webinar, which is really reporting your ROI, is we're tracking one very specific goal, which is a website phone call that's happening on a specific area of our page. So this traffic, because we have it set up in a unique way, is telling me that I had 8 conversions on here from a website phone call. Now I'm going to go look back at my medium and see where that's coming from. And that's coming from a custom parameter that we set called phone organic. So even though it's not showing up here at number 1, I know that I had 8 callers come in from organic traffic. So now I'm able to assign an ROI. If a client or if a call is worth $100 to me, I can say that this is now $800 worth of generated traffic. If I'm spending $500 or an equivalent amount of time on my SEO, that's not a bad return. If I'm spending 3 or 4 times that and what I really want to drive are phone calls, that's kind of when you got to tell yourself, maybe it's time to go back to the drawing board and figure out how we're presenting our information because people aren't converting as well as they should be. So landing page performance, we're going to cover this really briefly, but basically unbounce and lead pages are 2 very, very, very good providers for drag and drop landing page or splash page development. So if you don't have the resources to build your own website or you don't have that expertise that you can tap into, these 2 websites will let you spit out something pretty good looking without putting in much more effort than you would put into like a PowerPoint presentation like this. So you can pretty much drag and drop things and get something that looks like a really professional website for very low cost. And we use these things to do A/B testing. We generally use these in the paid environment to sort of generate leads and to try new things and to figure out, what variables we can test in order to drive higher conversion rates. But you can use these for all kinds of purposes. It's just a really good resource for quickly making a pretty good looking site that's built to convert. So in measuring paid search, you're going to want to look, and a lot of these metrics can be transferred over to SEO, organic SEO as well, or even email, social media. These are the kind of basic metrics that we're going to want to look at. So investment, how much are we spending, clicks, how many visitors we're receiving, and then leads, which is how many times are our users actually taking the action we want them to take. Measuring things like our cost per click, which you can generate on the organic side too. You really just have to put what your investment is from a time or cash standpoint and put that against your clicks. But this is going to give you an idea of what each visitor is costing you. And your lead rate is a very good indicator. You can look at this as lead rate or conversion rate. The 2 terms are pretty interchangeable. But looking at a lead rate of like 20% tells me that 1 out of every 5 people that are actually landing onto my page are taking the action I want them to take. That's pretty good. That's actually really good. I will, from personal experience, I'll tell you that anytime you can get 10% of people in a given environment online to actually do what you want them to do, you're doing a really good job. That's a really good internal benchmark just to say, hey, can we improve things? If you're below that 10% mark, yeah, you should probably look at trying a couple of things in order to raise that metric. If you're in the teens or the 20s, you're doing a pretty good job. Measuring that cost per lead is extremely important from an ROI standpoint. So figuring out what that value of that lead is, and then if you have another step in your conversion, so actual client acquisition, this is going to tell you what, in a traditional sales environment is your close rate, right? So if you're looking at 39 clients based off of 314 leads, we're looking at an acquisition rate of about 12%. I would generally like to see a higher figure, but that's telling us that our cost per client is about $1,260. So without going through these metrics in kind of a step-by-step fashion, you're not going to get to this cost per client area, and that's really what you need to determine your ROI. So Moving along here, this is an example from our call tracking metric software. And just to give you guys an idea of what this looks like and the data that you can get from this, you'll see your call date here, so what time the actual call took place, your tracking number, so what number they ended up calling. Usually you can kind of ignore this column. But your incoming number, this is actually the number that's calling in. So think of this as sort of built-in caller ID. It's a really good way of tracking calls that you receive from either Google Organic or Google PPC and tying that back into some form of ROI. Call duration is always a good metric to take a look at. Generally speaking, anything over or under a minute and a half or 2 minutes is probably not a very substantial phone call, right? Anything over that 2-minute mark, and generally there's some kind of conversation that took place. So you can run a quick little analysis by sorting by duration to see, hey, if there's a 20-minute phone call generated from, PPC, and we're seeing that our PPC phone calls are consistently driving a higher duration, we're going to put more value on those calls because we're having a longer engagement cycle. Now, one of the neat, really, really cool things about phone tracking software is that you can record calls. So you can go back and figure out those qualitative aspects of that interaction. Are we having good conversations? Are salespeople saying the things they should? Are we presenting our information clearly and eloquently? Or are people just kind of not really getting anything past this? What is the value of that actual interaction? Some of these things that are hard to tell from an actual data kind of numbers standpoint, sometimes you just want to listen to the calls and kind of see what's going on. So measuring blogging. Blog traffic and referral sources are going to be a couple of things you really want to focus on. Referral sources are important because if your blog is being sent out from your website or shared from another source that you may have shared it with, Blogger, for example, Reddit, or some kind of industry kind of newsletter, you're going to want to see who's actually sending traffic back your way. And then it's generally good practice to actually go contact the owner, the manager of that website or blog, and try to figure out if there's a way where you can work together more tightly. And use things like data to kind of prove that you have some kind of mutual relationship or value to gain from working together. Also, you can track your conversions by post. You can track your CTA, your call to action performance, and really get a good idea of if your blog is actually driving the kind of activity that you want it to take. So measuring social media. With social media, there's a couple of different metrics that you really want to analyze. It's harder to prove ROI with social media than it usually is with most other mediums, but you usually have softer goals. So your social audience growth, reach, and engagement are going to be things that Facebook, for one, is really good about telling you. So is LinkedIn. It'll give you a really good idea of the amount of times that your post is seen, the amount of times your post is interacted, shared, liked, or even how much time is spent with that just sitting there on the screen. So as you look at developing a social media strategy, or if you're just sending out some of your content over a variety of different mediums, which we'll always suggest you do, you'll get an idea of if people are reading it, people are engaging with it, if you're getting traffic from it. And you can always go back to Google Analytics to actually see what your conversions are from social media and try to determine, what that actual ROI is. So what we're looking at here is just an example of Google Analytics. We're looking at our conversions, and we're breaking it down by social media. So only looking at social media conversions here, and looking at our social networks, we see that we had 2 conversions on one day. So maybe we put out a post that was, very message specific, and we shared it out over all our social networks. What we're seeing here is 2 conversions taking place, and we know that one happened through Facebook and one happened through Twitter. So right there, we can tell that, hey, posting that same post over both mediums provided value. We got a conversion from both. So, that might tell you that your messaging is on point. Maybe it's 2 conversions out of 1,000 possible viewers, and that means your message wasn't on point because your click-through rates and your conversion rates are so low. So based on the entire environment, these metrics should mean many things, but without keeping your goal in mind, you're not really going to know what this is telling you. So a couple other views inside of Google Analytics about what it'll pull back from social media. Looking at this figure here on the right, essentially your breakdown of your conversions. 35 conversions, how many of these are brought back by social networks? You can actually see that Google Analytics will allow you to break this down by Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Meetup. In this example, versus all the sessions that social brought, all the conversions that social brought, and how social kind of contributed to your overall conversion bottom line. So this is all available in Google Analytics, and it's all really easy to look up. Looking at email, a lot of the same metrics will apply to email as they will to SEO or to really any other medium. You're going to look at bounce rates. Are people leaving your email? Are they not interacting with it? Are they not clicking a link or taking whatever action you're trying to get them to do? Delivery rate is another really big thing. So generally speaking, if you're going to have, if you have an email list of 100 and you send out a bulk email through one of the many services out there, MailChimp, Benchmark Email, just to name a few, you're not going to reach all 100 people. It's just not going to happen. Because of the way that email works, it's almost a technical impossibility. Some things are going to go to spam. Some emails just won't be delivered. Some people will see them, just not get them. So you really want to see what your delivery rate is and then what your opening rate is to see how many times people are actually looking at your email. Open rates will give you a really good idea about how compelling your actual subject line is. You only get so much time to try to convince someone to open an email. You really only have that one line. So depending on how compelling that is, it's usually going to have a pretty high impact on your open rate. Click-through rates, forwarding rates, conversion rates, these things are all trackable through the 2 email services that I just mentioned. And just about any bulk email service will give you an idea of what your click-through rate is, what your forwarding rate is, what your conversion rate is. Once again, this is all about determining ROI. So keeping your goals in mind and setting these up properly, you'll be able to see how your goals are actually being achieved. Competitor tracking is another place that you can do some reporting. We like to try to gather as much information about our competitors as possible. So we use a couple of the tools that we mentioned earlier, specifically SEO Moz or Moz and SEO Books to run our competitors against what their SEO rank is, what the value of their keywords are, how many PPC keywords they're going after, and what they might be spending on a monthly basis, how many pages are being indexed on their site, and how active they are on either Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media that we really want to analyze. Looking at the competitive landscape is going to give you an edge because you're going to see what you're up against, and you're going to see where your competitors who are ranking above you or even below you are spending their time investing in, and allow you to plan accordingly. So it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole of chasing your competitors around. I always suggest to all of my clients, especially the profit ones because they're usually more worried about their competitors, to take all this information with a grain of salt. Don't get too focused on what the competition is doing. If you're providing good content and you're providing a good resource and a good way to interact with that content, Google's entire algorithm is designed to reward you. So if you're keeping on with those kinds of activities and practices, you will see results from it. It may take a while, but you will see positive results from it. Another reporting example, this is actually what we provide for our clients. We meet with our clients on a monthly basis, and for each meeting we provide an executive overview. So really what that story is behind the data. So this is something that I suggest when people are doing self-reporting, that they actually spend the time to sit down and write this stuff out. This is going to give you an idea of what you're learning reading through the traffic. So just to give you an idea of what the status is, we just talked about the activity we took over the last month. So we achieved first page presence on several target keywords. It generated 20 organic leads over the last 30 days. Our PPC is performing well. Just kind of a little bit of the state of the union. With progress, we want to see specific actions that have been done over the past whatever period we're reporting to see where we're going and how we're getting from A to B to C. We always provide recommendations, and what you're seeing there is kind of what's included in our report, which we're going to go through to give you guys some examples. This is our PPC and lead report. So it's a lot like the other chart we showed earlier, but this is what we look at on a month-in, month-out basis for all of our clients. You'll see that PPC leads and organic leads are counted in different tables because the ROI is going to be assigned a little bit differently, but we're still measuring all those same metrics we talked about. And going through this on a month-to-month basis, you get a really good idea of how well your investment is performing. So as you can see down here on the organic side, you can invest in organic for 3 months and not see much. But as you get into July and August, the value of that organic traffic, as you keep rising in the rankings, click-through rates go higher, your conversion rates will go higher, and you'll start to see that ROI start to kind of spin itself on its head. You know, from July you had 8 leads here, and in August, you know, that almost tripled to 22. We'll see that progress continue almost exponentially as you continue to kind of go through organic traffic and organic SEO best practices. Website reporting. This is some of the most basic data you'll see from Google Analytics. The chart below, or we'll start with the chart above, is really just tracking sessions, users, page views, that kind of top-level website metric stuff. Not always inherently useful, to be honest with you. We show it because most of our clients go, hey, how much traffic am I getting? The traffic itself isn't a number I'm always too concerned about. It's about what that traffic is doing, how it's performing, and how it's accomplishing your goals. So that table below is just about one of my favorite views in online marketing in general. Acquisition, behavior, and conversion. So the ABC chart. Organic search is, you know, in this particular example, the biggest contributor of traffic. And what we're looking at is a month-over-month view. So we saw that at a 5% increase in acquisition, the bounce rate dropped a little bit, which can sometimes be really good. But our goal conversion is down 20%. So despite actually bringing in more organic traffic, I wouldn't say that, you know, our job is necessarily better than that because our conversion rates went down. So maybe we're bringing traffic in from keywords that we might not be targeting. Or maybe that traffic just isn't performing as strongly for whatever reason as it did in the past. So skipping down a few notches down to paid search, we can see that that's providing very little of our overall traffic, so less than 5%. That's, you know, not a whole lot of traffic, but as you keep kind of moving over through the columns, you'll see that the amount of conversions here, just based on the size of these bar charts, are blowing everything else out of the water. Our conversion rate increased 12%, but just the sheer amount of conversions and goal completions we received here completely outweighs the other media that we're going after. So this is telling you that despite bringing back very little traffic, paid search here is really doing its job. So this is why you want to look at the full spectrum of things and not just the kind of traffic and impressions that you're used to hearing about. So you'll see our ranking report from Google Webmaster Tools data. We always split out these queries based on that non-branded traffic. So what keywords are driving new users to your website? We also look at our ranking reports. So in this case, we're looking at a family attorney in Albuquerque. And basically seeing where their keywords are ranking for a specific search. So seeing some good improvements here. This is from Bright Local. So it's a really good, really inexpensive ranking tool that we use with everybody. And it'll show you that increase over time, you know, current rank versus the previous rank that you're measuring against. And then, always keep a good idea. Anytime you look at an organic campaign, you're always going to want to really focus on what your target keywords are and the amount of links that you're generating towards them. So this is just kind of how we display it to our clients, but always keep an eye on this stuff. Your target keywords are going to be your compass in any sort of SEO campaign. So that is actually going to do it from a standpoint of what we want to record and kind of what we want to look at as far as analytics and reporting goes. So I hope I didn't spit too much out at you at once, but I'll invite you now. We got a little bit of time for questions. So if you have any or need some clarification, please feel free to write it here in the chat on the left-hand side, and we'll be sticking around to answer some of your questions. So if you have any, please go for it. Okay. Don't see any coming through.
All right. Well, if there are no questions, we'll take that as you did a great job, Tyler.
We'll hope.
But if you do, any of the participants have any questions that pop up after the presentation, feel free to contact C1 Partners and they can answer those for you, or you could quickly chat them right now. As I stated, we will be sending out an evaluation. You'll also be directed to that after you close out the webinar. Feel free to let us know how we did and how we can improve. I'll also be sending an email with the recorded webinars, so you have that for your records. That all being said, thank you, Tyler, so much for presenting today and giving us a lot of information.
Yeah, thank you all very much for attending, and I hope this is some value to you. Always feel free to shoot us an email or give us a call if you have any questions. We're more than happy to help educate you. I'd also suggest that if you're looking for more resources about this, we have a lot of free resources that you can sort of build a campaign on at c1-partners.com. So by all means, go check it out. We've got a lot of good stuff on there. So thank you very much for attending.
Great. Thanks.